Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air. The high-stakes meetings at the White House. President Trump, President Zelensky, and key European leaders pushing for a ceasefire. And a face-to-face meeting between Putin and Zelensky. And the state of emergency right now. Hurricane Erin barreling up the East Coast with life-threatening surf and dangerous rip currents. The new track and timing just in. First, that major push for peace in Ukraine. President Zelensky, backed by European leaders, rushing to the White House for urgent face-to-face meetings just days after President Trump's summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The leaders pushing for security guarantees to protect Ukraine and for an immediate ceasefire, something President Trump is backing away from after his meeting with Putin. Just hours before the talks in Washington, Russia launching more deadly attacks on Ukraine. And just in, Trump calling Putin after today's meetings, saying they are now beginning to arrange a meeting between the Russian president and President Zelensky. Rachel Scott is live at the White House. Ian Pannell standing by in Kyiv. Hurricane Erin sparking that state of emergency on the East Coast. Tropical storm watches just issued in North Carolina. Evacuation now underway. Florida all the way up to the Northeast, bracing for impacts. Dangerous rip currents and massive waves as high as 20 feet expected in some areas. Victor Akendo from the Outer Banks, where preparations are underway right now. Ginger Z timing out the storm. A major airline strike sparking travel chaos. 10,000 Air Canada flight attendants defy an order to return to work, crippling that nation's largest airline and impacting hundreds of thousands of travelers. The urgent investigation after 2 officers were killed in Utah, a deputy and his service dog wounded. What we're learning about the suspect. The news just coming in, the woman who authorities say sold actor Matthew Perry the drug that killed him, expected to plead guilty. The weight loss drug wars, one drug maker slashing the price of Wegovy and Ozempic. What's behind the move? And America Strong tonight, the Army veteran on a mission to spread smiles, with a little help from his friends.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
Reopen the border and invite the millions of illegals deported back into our country, including the violent ones, rapists, and the murderers? Or would you first repair our relationship with Iran? Is there a way to unobliterate their nuclear facilities? It's gone now, but maybe you can bring it back to life, like Biden's aides did with Joe every morning. Should you kill the deals that Trump made that brought peace between Cambodia and Thailand, Rwanda and the Republic of Congo, Armenia and Azerbaijan, India and Pakistan, Egypt and Ethiopia, Joe and Mika? You open the
Air Canada's flight attendants stand their ground this Monday night.
Monday work has got to go.
The union refuses to comply with the back-to-work order, how it's caught the airline and the government off guard as passengers run out of patience.
Why are you telling me there's a flight when there's no flight?
Back in the White House, this time with backup. Ukraine's president joined by European leaders for another high-stakes meeting with President Donald Trump. How the mood is better.
Yeah, you look good. I said the same thing.
But will Ukraine be forced to make concessions? Pierre Poilievre's second shot, the by-election to get him back in Parliament, why he needs to do more than just win it. And no muscle required, the sporting event that reveals how far robots still have to go to match humans. Air Canada flight attendants continue to defy a back-to-work order, and all of the airline's planes remain grounded tonight. About 10,000 flight attendants have stayed on the picket line, despite the Canada Industrial Relations Board declaring that strike unlawful.
And if it means folks like me going to jail, then so be it. If it means our union being fined, then so be it. We're looking for a solution here. Our members want a solution here, but that solution has to be found at a bargaining table.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The union has dug in its heels and is challenging the back-to-work order in court. And tonight, the federal minister for Jobs and Families says she has ordered a probe into allegations of unpaid work in the airline sector. Air Canada passengers are caught in the middle of all this. The airline says about 500,000 customers have already had their flights canceled. Neetu Garcha is following developments for us tonight. Chants from striking flight attendants echo at major airports across the country.
We're no longer flight attendants. We are all of Canada's union.
Tonight from the White House, the urgent, unprecedented meeting of European leaders pushing for peace. President Zelensky back at the Oval Office, side by side with President Trump. The event with world leaders unlike any other in modern history. Trump was asked would he send troops to help secure peace in Ukraine. What he's saying now about a potential meeting with him, Zelensky, and Vladimir Putin. Plus, the president heard on a hot mic appearing to say he thinks Putin wants to make a deal for him. The new bloodshed in Ukraine, Richard Engel on the ground as a civilian apartment building is struck, a toddler among the dead inside. Hurricane Aaron surging north, emergency evacuation orders in place as the dangerous storm gets closer. The new warnings tonight and the threat to the East Coast beach towns during one of the busiest weeks of the summer. Shocking security footage, our first look inside the Michigan Walmart where last month a man went on a violent stabbing spree. Wildfires in Europe burning out of control, soldiers and firefighters trying to stop those deadly flames. The president targeting mail-in ballots, calling them, quote, corrupt, and falsely claiming they undermine elections. Our fact check ahead of the midterms next year.
This is NBC Nightly News. Reporting tonight from the White House, here is Tom Young.
Look, the war's going to end. When it ends, I can't tell you.
President Trump hosts a meeting of world leaders at the White House aimed at ending Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia weighs in with a heavy barrage of drones and missiles.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm John Dickerson. Maurice Dubois is off tonight. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky returned to the White House today, 171 days after his tense Oval Office confrontation with President Trump. This time, Zelensky was greeted warmly, and he received President Trump's assurances that the U.S. would be involved in protecting his country after the war ends. After 3.5 years of war, nearly 1.5 million troops have been killed or wounded, with Russia bearing more than twice as many casualties. Russia controls roughly 20% of what was Ukrainian territory. Since 2022, the U.S. has contributed more than $130 billion in total aid to Ukraine. Holly Williams reports from Ukraine, and we'll turn to her in a moment. But first, Nancy Cordes is at the White House, where Presidents Trump and Zelensky were joined by several other European leaders. And Nancy, there seems to be some kind of early signs of progress today.
There does indeed, John. Tonight, the president says he has begun to make arrangements for a meeting between Putin and Zelensky, which would be a first if it happens. Trump spoke to Putin by phone after meeting with Zelensky and a host of European power players for about 5 hours and easing some of their fears that he might be siding with Putin.
President Zelensky says he is ready to meet Vladimir Putin.
And in a significant move, President Trump is preparing to offer NATO-style security guarantees for Ukraine if a ceasefire is agreed.
There'll be a lot of help. When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. But we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
The American president then interrupted his meeting with the European leaders to take a call with Vladimir Putin, where apparently he said he's ready to sit down with President Zelensky in the next 2 weeks.
And the European reaction? Well, Sir Keir Starmer praises President Trump's commitment to security guarantees, while the German Chancellor Merz cast his doubt on whether Mr. Putin would have the courage for a summit with the Ukrainian president.
Flag fiascos. They continue as Tower Hamlets joins a Birmingham council in pulling down St George's crosses from lampposts.
As the PM insists, pride in the UK is an important thing. We're asking, should we be proud to fly British flags?
Summer holidays in full swing. Where are you heading? One popular British destination is Benidorm.
Our GB News summer holiday there last year was such a success, we have decided to send Dougie Beattie back to speak to the holidaymakers.
Wonders are making history, all to the sound of the bagpipes. We're going to be meeting the trio aiming to become the first ever to row the Pacific Ocean non-stop and unsupported. They're going to join us live from the middle of the Pacific.
From pygmy hippos to rockhopper penguins, it's time to step on the scales, because today is the big annual weigh-in at zoos. Keepers are checking everything from height to heft, and we'll be live at Whipsnade to see who has kept its shape and maybe who has not.
A very good morning. Leeds United made a triumphant return to the Premier League last night after a 2-year absence. Lucas Metcher's controversial penalty 6 minutes from time was enough for them to overcome Everton at a buoyant Elland Road.
Warm sunny spells for some of us today, but cool and cloudy for most. Full details of the forecast coming up soon.
Very good to see you on this Tuesday morning. I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Penny Smith, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Or stream it all on ABC iView.
Today, the South Australian Government formally adopts 7 of the 136 recommendations from the Royal Commission into Domestic Violence.
We will be in a position to respond to the remaining 129 recommendations formally and comprehensively by year's end.
Ukraine's security guarantees to be ironed out within 10 days as Donald Trump pushes Vladimir Putin for a 3-way meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky. Calls for a mother to come forward after the body of a newborn was found in a storm drain in Perth. And another no-confidence motion tabled before Tasmania's 52nd Parliament. Welcome to ABC News. I'm Liz Childs. South Australia's Premier says his government will respond to all 136 recommendations of the Royal Commission into Domestic, Family and Sexual Violence by the end of the year. The government has formally accepted 7 recommendations, including the development of a 5-year statewide strategy. SA Premier Peter Malinauskas says while the government is still considering the other recommendations, some warrant a faster response. Second on DW.
This is DW News, and these are our top stories. U.S. President Donald Trump says he's begun arrangements for a meeting between the presidents of Ukraine and Russia. He made the comments after a face-to-face meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House. Talks were aimed at finding a way to end Moscow's 3-year war against Ukraine and were attended by a host of European leaders. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz says these are decisive days for Ukraine and that the Zelensky-Putin meeting will take place within the next 2 weeks. He said all of Europe should be involved in any settlement, and he reiterated that Ukraine should not be forced to give up territory. Despite the diplomatic efforts for peace, Russia has continued its attacks on Ukrainian cities. Russia launched a total of 140 drones and missiles across Ukraine. A drone strike on a residential area of Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, killed at least 10 people. Other casualties were reported in the southeastern city of Zaporizhzhia. This is DW News from Berlin. You'll find much more news on our website. That's at dw.com.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on today's show. Ukraine's President Zelensky says he's ready to meet President Putin for talks to end the war.
Donald Trump says Europe must be the first line of defense, but the US will help to provide Ukraine with security guarantees.
It's Tuesday the 19th of August. Your headlines. A historic White House summit raises hope that peace for Ukraine could be within reach.
There'll be a lot of help. When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. But we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
The
be a deal, and I hope there is, it needs to be a lasting deal, not a temporary deal, one that is enforced if necessary.
What happens next will depend on Russia. Donald Trump spoke to Vladimir Putin from the White House to begin arrangements for a meeting with President Zelensky. Also had TikTok and Instagram accused of targeting teenagers with posts about suicide and self-harm. We reported the backlash sparked by councils tearing down England flags. And in the sports, Leeds marked their Premier League return with a 1-0 win over Everton. A very good morning to you. Our top story. It's been a day of...
Good morning, I'm Oliver Farry and this is Daybreak. Donald Trump says he is setting up a bilateral meeting between Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin in the coming days. It was one of the more fruitful outcomes of Zelensky's visit to the White House. Alongside European leaders, Zelensky also pledged to buy $90 billion worth of US weapons financed by European governments. Hamas says it has accepted a Qatar and Egyptian brokered ceasefire proposal which will see the release of all remaining hostages in Gaza, but Israel is still pressing ahead with its new offensive in Gaza City, which it says is intended to finish off Hamas. The death toll in floods in northwestern Pakistan rises to 277, with 150 people still missing. Locals in the mountainous Bunar district accuse authorities of not giving them warnings to evacuate ahead of the weekend's rains, which triggered deadly floods and landslides, sweeping away entire villages.
This is Asia Now.
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Rani Saftani. At this hour, a flurry of diplomatic activity in the U.S. President Donald Trump arranging face-to-face peace talks between the leaders of Ukraine and Russia after meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky and EU leaders at the White House. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi says China and India should see each other as partners, not rivals. The two sides hold border talks in New Delhi. The top diplomat will call on Prime Minister Narendra Modi later today. And Pakistan braces for more devastating downpours and flash floods. More than 300 people have been killed since Friday, while at least 150 are still missing.
Africa News. The news.
It's a trial that the Tanzanian people will not witness. A Dar es Salaam court on Monday banned the live broadcast of treason proceedings against Tanzania's main opposition leader, Tundu Lissu. Principal Resident Magistrate Franco Kiswaga said the ban was designed to protect the identities of civilian prosecution witnesses throughout the trial. Lissu condemned the decision to keep proceedings behind closed doors. He said the ban would allow the court to operate in darkness and prevent his supporters from following the case. Tundu Lissu's trial began on Monday after it was postponed several times in recent months. Lissu was arrested and charged with treason in April after he called for electoral reform in a speech. Prosecutors said he incited the public to disrupt the upcoming general elections in October. If convicted, Tundu Lissu could face the death penalty.
Iran said Monday it was ready for talks on its nuclear program that would ease the burden of sanctions on the country. This is not something new. We have said that to build confidence about the peaceful nature of our nuclear program, we are ready to take a series of actions, provided that the unfair sanctions are lifted. In July, Iran's foreign minister said the country would not give up nuclear enrichment. The talks will continue, and probably within the upcoming days, a new round of talks between Iran and the IAEA will be held. Relations between Iran and the UN's nuclear agency soured after a 12-day air war was waged by Israel and the US in June, which saw key Iranian nuclear facilities targeted. Just a day before the war, the IAEA had accused Tehran of non-compliance.
The Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention welcomed the approval of the first ever malaria treatment specifically formulated for infants. In a press release, the Africa CDC said the news was a major step forwards in the fight against the disease. The new treatment is dedicated to newborns and infants weighing less than 5 kilograms. It was developed through a partnership between Swiss pharmaceutical company Novartis and the Medicines for Malaria venture. Swiss drug regulators formally approved the formulation in July. The Africa CDC also praised the 8 member states where the medicine was trialed. Those include Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Kenya, and Nigeria. The organization said this country's leadership underscores Africa's growing role in driving health innovation. The treatment is expected to be introduced in the 8 African trial countries within weeks. The Africa CDC said it would continue working with the member states involved to ensure that every child gets access to the treatment. In 2023, malaria caused nearly 600,000 deaths worldwide, according to the World Health Organization.
The remains of Alain Christo Traoré, widely known as Alain Faso, have been repatriated to Burkina Faso from Côte d'Ivoire, igniting national mourning and renewed calls for accountability. Traoré, a prominent social media influencer and supporter of Burkina Faso's ruling junta, was found dead in his Dakar Gendarmerie school cell in Abidjan late July. In Ouagadougou, hundreds marched in protest dressed in white from the Thomas Sankara Memorial to the Ivorian embassy. Ivorian authorities concluded that he took his own life by hanging himself with bed sheets, a finding swiftly rejected by his supporters and the Burkinabe government, who insist his death was a villainous murder. They condemned the lack of prior notification to his family lawyer or Burkina Faso's embassy and have demanded a full, transparent investigation. Protesters carried placards calling for the truth and justice to be served, insisting that Traoré's case symbolizes a broader national grievance.
Held under the theme Advancing Industrialization, Agricultural Transformation and Energy Transition for a Resilient SADC, the summit in Antananarivo focused on accelerating regional integration through strengthening industrial capacity, modernizing agriculture, and promoting an inclusive energy transition. Madagascar's President Andry Rajoelina, who assumed the rotating SADC chairmanship from Zimbabwe's Emerson Mnangagwa, called the summit historic. It is the first time the Indian Ocean island country was hosting the meeting since joining the bloc 20 years ago. Rajoelina stressed the need to accelerate manufacturing and expand intra-regional trade.
A football fan accused of racially abusing Bournemouth forward Antoine Semenyo during the team's match against Liverpool on Friday has been banned from every football stadium in Britain. The 47-year-old man was arrested on suspicion of a racially aggravated public order offence and released on conditional bail. The opening match of the Premier League season at Anfield was stopped for several minutes during the first half after Semenyo reported the abuse to the referee. Posting on social media, the 25-year-old Ghana international thanked his teammates, fans, Liverpool players and officials. He said the entire football family stood together. Speaking on Monday, FIFA President Gianni Infantino said the association is committed to ensuring players are respected and protected and that authorities take appropriate action.
Africa now has its own voice.
Thank you for watching Amish Shakil 5858. I am Amish Shakil. I hope you will visit again. Have a good life. Bye-bye.